Hello and welcome to this overview of the Plus Code Module Reboot. As you all know, we went live yesterday, Tuesday, June 30th, with a reboot of the Code Enforcement Module in the Public Land Use System, or PLUS. In this video, we're going to talk about some of the changes in the Code Enforcement Module in PLUS. First of all, what is staying the same? The basic process for opening new cases remains essentially the same. There are some new fields that we'll explore as we move through this video going forward. Property owner information in the Violator Contacts tab will remain the same. Time tracker entries for capturing your time also remains the same. Workflow. Each case type has a workflow that is unique to the particular case type, but navigation within the workflow remains the same. The case summary narrative report. Going forward, we will continue to run the case summary narrative report. It will continue to work. It will look a little bit different, and we'll talk about that moving forward. Your timesheet report that you run at the end of every pay period to attach to your PeopleSoft report will also remain the same. You will use the same processes that you are currently using to add attachments or photographs. And you will use the same navigation that you use currently to conduct searches within the system. Now let's talk about some of the differences. What are the changes? The case numbering scheme to identify case types at a glance. There will be 10 new case types. 2 more are coming soon. Those new case types will be differentiated from the older case types by a new naming convention. Each of the current or new case types will now have 4 letters at the beginning of the case type number. Time tracker will have a reduced number of time types available to you. Time tracker use will be expanded in that you will now use the time tracker to enter your case report narratives instead of activities. Additional addresses will now be in an additional information tab specific to contacts. This tab will be case specific and will be where staff will now enter the additional contacts like beneficiaries or interested parties, that information that we obtain from either a RealQuest property report or a lot book. Adding case flags such as ROW for right-of-way, BOS for Board of Supervisors sensitivity, COCO for County Council, etc. That information will now be added in the Zones tab, and this new feature will allow us to search those cases that have flags added. That was not something we could do previously, so this is an improvement. Also, in Time Tracker, there will be no more Bill Now for field staff. You'll still enter your time into Time Tracker, but you will not have to check boxes and click Bill Now to send that information over to fees. So you may be asking yourself where you can find help. I'm going to provide you with a list of those individuals who have been designated to help us through this development process. I consider them our super users or testers. They are not, we're all learning this together, so please be patient and be kind. One place that you can go to find assistance with basic navigation and steps in the new Code Enforcement Module is out on the Y drive or the shared drive. In the BSCE folder, the Plus CE subfolder, Plus Guides, Plus CE Guides, Reboot 2020. There are 2 versions of a user guide available to you, both with a table of contents. The one has screenshots for those who like to have something specific to refer to. The other is without screenshots. There is a quick reference guide saved as a PDF which outlines where to find information on key steps to processing a code case in Plus specific to the user guide with screenshots. Our super users in the West County office are Jamison Cole and Angie Solis. Mid-County is Wayne Durant. South County, Ryan Calametti, Carol Lucero, and James Pike. East County is Jose Cruz and Sarah Montano. The Cannabis Team super user is Ron Welch. Up in admin, you can contact Mary Ortiz, Nicole Gonzalez, or Julie Ortega. Fiscal staff who can assist are Valerie Lamb and Angela Sarmiento. Thank you for your attention. I will now take us into the Plus stage system and show you some of the basic navigation. Okay, so we're in the Plus stage system. As you can see, aside from this banner telling you that you're not in the live database, that we are in the stage environment where we conduct testing, everything looks basically the same. We still have the EnterGov E that we're going to use for our basic navigation. We will do most of our work in the Code Management module, Code Viewer, Code Case Search. Going to go ahead and look for any recent cases in the zoning case type. So what I'll do is place my cursor in this code tab, code case number field, and type CVZO and hit search. Okay, so I only have a couple of cases to choose from. We're going to go ahead and go into one and take a look. Okay, again, everything looks essentially the same, with the exception of the case number now having 4 letters as the prefix, then the year, and then we're starting with the 0001, 2, 3, and so on. So they will assign cases sequentially within the case type. So you may have more than one case that have the same numerics, but different alpha prefixes. So something to be mindful of. So here we are on our menu, Code Case Details. Parcel information looks the same. Address information is essentially the same. We still have to designate a situs. Zones. This is the tab that I mentioned in our PowerPoint presentation where we will now add our flags for right-of-way, Board of Supervisors, County Council, etc. So to do that, what I did was click Add Zone. I've got this pop-up that comes up. I'm going to hit Search. Now I have a list of zones. I'm going to click in this name field here just one time to alphabetize it. Then I'm going to scroll through and look on the code side here for our flags. Now they all have an initial name of type so that they group together when you alphabetize. So here we have our County Council flag, our AVA flag, our CDBG or Community Development Block Grant flag, our litigation flag that we would use if we have sent a case forward and a court case has been filed, or if we have a case that was filed against the department that is in litigation and we want to make sure that we flag it. ROW again is for right-of-way. You're going to use this ROW flag primarily for those parking cases or vehicles in the right-of-way. BOS, again, any board referral or issue that has some sort of political sensitivity. So we're going to choose, let's see, we'll go ahead and choose litigation or Board of Supervisors and hit, oops, forgive me. So we've got our flag, and in order to choose it, we're going to click on the folder. That will pull it into our table, and then we can simply save. So Again, we've added the BOS flag to this case. If I want to add additional flags, I can either hit search down here, or I can type what I'm looking for in that one of these fields. So I know the name is going to be different than the code. I'm going to search the code, and I will look for, let's see, litigation. So there it is. Click the folder to select it. I'm going to save it to my case. So again, this Zones tab is new for code enforcement. We hadn't used it previously. As you can see, there was zoning information in the table as well. If you'd like to add the zone to your case, you may. You do not have to, because it does still continue to pull into our additional info tab over here. Moving through the tabs, we have violator contacts. When a case is opened in the new case types, we will continue to have to select or add a property owner and select them as the billing contact. So that's true for all cases, including those in the right-of-way. If you do not add property owner information, the system will throw you an error at some point in your case processing. So again, even those cases that we know are unlikely to be recoverable or billable, we do need to have an owner designated. We're not using notes. Something to take note of in activities for the new case types moving forward. Again, those cases that have the 4-digit alpha characters followed by a series of numbers, activities will no longer work. So I'm going to just walk you through that. So if I try to add an activity, it acts like it's going to do it. I choose the drop down and nothing comes up. So again, in the new case types, we are no longer doing activities. Anything that we had done in activities will now be captured in Time Tracker. Fees, once we start doing our casework and we populate fees, we can see that over here. Again, that's something more for fiscal to be mindful of and not for field staff. We're not currently using holds. And inspection cases, this will start to populate when we use our inspections in the workflow module. So again, in code case details, a lot of the information looks the same. One thing that's different is we're now using the Zones tab for our case flags, BOS, LIT, COCO, ROW. We're continuing to use our violator contacts tabs for the primary property owner information. We will no longer be adding interested parties in this location. I'll say that again. Any information that you pull from a RealQuest property report or lot book will no longer be added here. Okay, we're going to move on to additional info. Additional info looks basically the same. We still have this alert field that we can type into if we need to let our staff know that there are issues on site. Again, something to be mindful of is this information will pull into our case narrative report, which is subject to public records requests. So be professional in your language and mindful that this is something the public may see. You could say something like aggressive dogs. Occupant name, if we fill in a name here and save it, it will pull into notices that we generate. This one is city and state, so we want to make sure we put the state in there and a zip code. So again, this is all the same. These fields are attached currently to all of our notices, so it will pull in if you do populate it. Same thing here. If you have an alternate address for the property owner, you can add that here and it will pull into the notices. Moving down the screen, property attributes information. This auto-populates when we attach the parcel, and it will auto-populate or auto-correct if we run geo rules. Office information again pulls in based on the assignment in the background. Something to note going forward, we are changing the process for reassigning parcel books to field staff. We're simplifying the process. I will have an application that I'll be able to share with the supervisors in the near future, and that will enable us to get some of this outdated data cleaned up. So you can type in here to correct for some of these issues and save your work, and it will pull into the notices. Legal description should auto-populate. If it does not, you can look at either the lot book report or a RealQuest report or even the Map My County property detail to obtain information that you can type in here to pull it in to notices. So parcel details, again, remains relatively the same. Saving, moving on to code detail in our additional info tab. Code detail looks different. You'll notice that there are some boxes that used to live right here that are now gone. Those were the flags, the ROW, AVA, BOS, that are now found in the Zones tab under Code Case Details. So here in Additional Info, Code Detail, these dates still drive information in the notices. So field staff or clerical still need to come in here and add dates for your notices. So let's say I'm giving 15 days, so I'm going to do next action date is 7/16. Date mailed, I'm going to choose 7/1 because I'm going to have clerical mail it today. Posting, the officer posted it yesterday at 10 a.m. And here you'll notice a new field, civil complaint filed. If we are involved in litigation on this particular case in the future, we can type in that court case number here and the date that the matter was filed, or if there's a court order, the date that it was filed. And we're going to save our changes as we move through. So we've looked at parcel details and code detail. Moving on to reporting info, this should look the same to you. This is where staff go to choose which document titles they're going to pull into their proofs of service or affidavits of posting. So this is a zoning case, CVZO. So our first notice we're going to say is a notice of violation and order to abate flat fee. So let's see if that's notice of violation and order to abate. It's already checked, so we're going to leave that alone. We're going to go down here and make sure that it is also checked for our affidavit of posting. It is. Mailing type, we can choose that here. Anything 457 would be certified mail. Most flat fee cases will be first class mail. Because this case is flat fee, we do not need to worry about the hourly rate. If we're recording a notice of pendency at some point in time, we do want to choose our notary. And this list is updated periodically, so if you haven't looked at it in a while, you should see our current notaries listed there. Again, going to save as we move forward. Okay, so we did parcel details, code detail, reporting information, contacts. This is our new contacts tab. Moving forward, as we continue to build and improve, this is where staff will now enter their interested parties. This will be attached to our notices moving forward so that we can pull the information in from here instead of global contacts. Like anything with Plus, this is a part of the process. So we've got our framework here, our table is here, the table is active. The notices have not all been pointed to the table yet, so that will be coming on a case-by-case basis, so look forward to that. Navigation here is the same as other tables in the system. You can type in the fields and tab between fields. It typically takes more than one tab, so usually two. You're going to tell it what kind of contact type it is, if it's an agent for service of process, attorney, a beneficiary listed on a deed of trust. Is this a demand requester, lien holder, an alternate address for the owner, keeping in mind you have 2 other locations that you can put that information in. Property manager, realtor, tenant, trustee, if there was a notice of default or notice of tax sale, or truster. So again, these are your interested parties. And we're going to go ahead and choose agent. Put in their mailing address. So if you need to put in a reference number, you can. Then simply save your work. Administrative citation table remains the same. So with flat fee, we're moving away from focus on administrative citations, but that does remain a tool for field staff if you feel like somebody just needs a little bit of encouragement, particularly on non-flat fee cases. We encourage you to go ahead and issue an administrative citation. On flat fee cases, the fees themselves are supposed to act as that motivator. The initial fee, the $450, is a little bit more significant than the $100 first penalty for an administrative citation. But if you do issue a citation, you go through the same process. You're going to type in your citation number with no spaces. The date refers to the date that you issued it. The time is the time that it was posted on the property. If you're mailing it, you check that box. Violation amount, you're going to check the appropriate penalty. Your violation code refers to the RCC code section that is applicable. If you're not sure where to find that information, I would encourage you to go to workflow details and pull it off of the violation or off of the citation itself. You do have a cheat sheet here in my links. It does need some editing, but what you can do is, in theory, find the violation that you've written it for and then copy the section. Oops, let me get the whole thing in there. And then you can close out that screen. Pop your section, put your cursor in there, and then can do Control V to paste. And then you're going to type in who you issued it to. So this is going to be Doe, whoever you've issued it to, and trying to get this notebook to open. So Jane Doe, their mailing address. And say OK. Service by, it was posted, but we're going to mail it. And any notes you want to note there. Save it. Okay, additional info, financials tab. This is a new tab. There are 2 fields that field staff need to pay attention to at the time they close their case, regardless of case type. And that is these first 2 fields. Field audit. So when you close your case, you're taking your checklist for either flat fee or hourly. You're filling it out. And then once you've got that, you're going to come here to this tab, do billable or non-billable based on what you determined through that closed case audit checklist, and then the date that you audited. That's it. You're going to save it. Once you save it and send that case file forward to either archives or to fiscal, fiscal handles all of this. So that's it for our additional info screen. Next, linked records. We're not going to do too much in here, but as you can see, as we've added a violation to this case in workflow, it pulls it into linked records under violations. You will also be able to see any inspections we do on this case here. we haven't explored these other tabs very much yet, so we're going to go ahead and move on to workflow details. Workflow details looks basically the same, but each of the new case types has a workflow that is specific to the case type. So one thing that I didn't mention earlier, and I should go back and do that, is the user guides. Actually, we touched on it a little bit in the intro. There are user guides available out on the shared network drive. And so when I go out to the shared network, I'm just going to walk you through some of the information in the guides once it comes up. Okay, so we're going to go. Going out to the shared network drive, BSCE, I am going to scroll down to plus CE, double click to open that folder, going up to plus guides, and then I'm going to go to plus CE guides reboot 2020, and I'm going to open this up a little bit so I can see the names. As I said earlier, I have a PDF file in here that gives you sort of a cheat sheet for the plus user guide with screenshots. There are page references in this, and it walks you through some of the basic processes. So key steps to opening a code case in Plus. Here's where you're going to find some of that information. Key steps to documenting inspections in Plus. This will refer you to the Plus user guide with photos or with screenshots and gives you the page numbers. Key steps to closing a code case in Plus user guide with screenshot page numbers are here. So that's the first one-page tool for your use. Then we have a Plus code enforcement user guide with a table of contents without screenshots. So for those of you that don't like the busyness of the screenshots with all the arrows and red circles, this is for you. And you can do read only. We're going to do view, edit document, so we can see it on a page layout. Okay, so we do have a table of contents that tells you where to find different items. So how to open a code enforcement case in Plus is the first process that's detailed here. What I want to point your attention to is after some of these basic casework instructions, you'll see that there are a list of appendices. Appendix A gives you a breakdown of the new case types. Appendix B gives you the zoning case workflow. C gives you the construction case workflow. D gives you accumulated rubbish case workflow. E is the NPDES workflow. F is the other flat fee case type. G is the workflow for the parking case type. H is the vehicle abatement workflow. I is the cannabis workflow. J is the criminal workflow. And K is the other hourly. So I'm going to go ahead and scroll down to page 13 to take a look at the table that's provided to help you understand, whoop, that went quickly, a breakdown of the new case types. So forgive me for scrolling. Here we go. So we've got our Appendix A, new case types. New case types with a new case number scheme have been created as part of the Plus Code Enforcement Module redesign. All code enforcement cases will keep the prefix CV for code violation. The new case types will have added letters following the CV to allow users to tell at a glance the types of violations included in the case. The numbering scheme is broken down in the table below. So you've got CV for code violation. The next two letters or alpha characters will indicate the case or violation type. The first two numerics will be the year, and then the following numbers are the sequential number of self-assigned by the system. So for the first case prefix, CVZO is for zoning. Here is a list of the zoning violations you can expect to find in that case type. Now, most, if not all of these came from the neighborhood enforcement case type that you were previously familiar with. That neighborhood enforcement case type had about 54 violations associated with that. It has been cut down to this list that you see before you. The majority of these are under Ordinance 348, and this particular case type has a cost recovery type of flat fee. So on pages 13 and 14 of the user guide without screenshots, you'll find this table. It does scroll down to the next page. CVZO is construction. You'll find construction without permit and illegal grading and unpermitted occupancy listed in the construction case type. Please know going forward there will be some additional changes to some of the code sections as Ordinance 457 has been revised twice within the last year, and we're still catching up with some of those code section changes being put into plus, but it is in the works and it will be coming soon. CVAR is accumulated rubbish. It includes both accumulated rubbish and accumulated rubbish expedited. The difference is accumulated rubbish expedited is on vacant, unimproved, unfenced lots with no reasonable expectation of privacy. So that vacant lot on a corner with no signs posted prohibiting entry, where somebody's doing illegal dumping, we can use the expedited process to address that under 541.5. CVOF is others flat fee. Anything that didn't fit nicely into one of the categories above, that is flat fee, went into this little workflow. So we've got 881, which are those distressed properties, blowing sand, business registration, graffiti. Just please know there have been recent changes to the graffiti ordinance that will be pushed into the system soon. Illegal temporary signs, short-term rentals, unprotected excavation and swimming pools, so our summary abatement processes fall into the others flat fee. CVNP for NPDES violations, also a flat fee case type. CVPA for parking violation, hourly case type. CVVA for vehicle abatement. CVCA for cannabis. Right now everything cannabis is going litigation, but we've maintained our ability to do our administrative processes if we choose to in the future. And this actually should have been 348, so I'll have to make that correction. CVCR, criminal violations, illegal dumping, light pollution, lighting trespass, and noise all fall into our new criminal flow. It's a very basic flow. It just is a way of being able to track those particular case types. CVOH for others hourly includes excessive yard sales, illegal directional signs, and illegal vending. Coming soon. We are still working on the new workflow for substandard structure, again incorporating those changes to Ordinance 457 as well as the California Building Code. And then CVMH for substandard mobile home, or actually anything mobile home related, because that is no longer under 457 and will all point back to the Title 25 and state regulations. So that is the first little area that I wanted to point you to as far as a useful reference guide about the case types and what violations are included in each. Next, Appendix B gives you the zoning case workflow. So these appendices are really the design documents that were used to build the case-specific workflows. So these blue bullets represent a step, and then under that overall step is the action. So when you go into your zoning case workflow, you're going to see the complaint intake type, the complaint intake step, and then it will outline any custom fields that staff can fill out. In this instance, complaint intake has a custom field with a drop-down menu with 3 options. Was it a public complaint, officer discovery, or was it a referral from another department or division within our agency? Violations, this is the step. You're going to add violations in the workflow as you have previously. with a change that now all violations will default to a status of alleged. Violations with a status of alleged will not pull in to your notices of violation. So when you come back from the field and you're updating your case, you want to make sure you do go into the workflow, that you do update your violation statuses appropriately. So anything that was unfounded, you're going to mark unfounded. Anything that was in violation, you will mark in violation. The exception being the advisory notices that are sent out prior to an inspection. Those have been requested to pull in violations that are in alleged status. I know for a fact today that one does, the other IT is still working on, but they will get to it. So again, these design documents will walk you through each of the steps that are either visible when you first go into the workflow or at least available to you. Some may be hidden, and those would be the steps that aren't used as frequently. We wanted to be able to keep the workflows at a reasonable length and not overwhelm you with choices, but we didn't want to take away options that may be used occasionally but not as frequently as some of the others. So for example, here we have extension of time. It is a hidden action to be manually added. So we'll go back into the workflow and I'll show you what that looks like. So bringing back up our stage zoning case workflow. So here, whoever opened this case did not document the activity, so we're going to do that for them. So we're in the overall step, and then the action, I right-clicked, I'm clicking Create, brings up my workflow details to the right over here. There is an Activities Comments field that you can type into. These fields will pull into some of the reports, but what we're mainly interested are those custom fields where we tell the system, was this a public complaint, an officer discovery, or an agency referral? I'm going to say that this was a public complaint. Somebody called the contact center and complained, for example. I'm not going to necessarily put that in the workflow because that is something I will capture in Time Tracker when I enter my report. So violation step, again, if we want to add a violation, we're going to right-click on the actual overall step, do Add Violation, and then I'm going to just click Search because I'm not sure what I want, and I'm going to get a running list of everything that is available in this workflow. So it looks like we've got excess outside storage over here. Let's do prohibited fencing and then click OK. Okay, so now it brings prohibited fencing into the workflow as it has in the past. We do still need to continue to right-click on it, create it, brings up the prohibited fencing code, the description, so the section from Ordinance 348 that it's violating, the revision text that pulls into the notices, fences shall not be constructed of garage doors, tires, pallets, or other materials not typically used for the construction of fences. So one thing you'll notice about these fields in the workflow, if there is a lock at the end of the field or at the right side of it, that is protected, it is hard-coded, we cannot edit it. So you'll notice here on corrective action, remove, and then it's got a list of choices in parentheses. There is no lock here. So this field may be edited, and you are encouraged to edit it for the sake of clarity for the recipient of your notice. So in this instance, we're going to say remove garage door fencing. We're going to take out everything that does not apply. Fencing shall not be constructed with materials not typically used for construction of fences. Let's see, what else do we want to say? So fences over 7 feet would require a permit. So that's our little bit of added detail there. We've taken out the choices that don't apply and made it specific to this case. We're going to say OK. We've got our alleged violation. If I've already inspected, I know it's in violation. I'm going to change it to in violation. Priority, we'll choose a priority. The board policy F5 that designates our response matrix is in the process of being revised. So know that that is also coming. So right now we're going to ascribe to whatever our current response matrix is, or direction from your individual field supervisors. Okay, so in violation, priority medium. The citation issue date does not apply to us, but it does auto-populate, and we are not able to shut that off at this time. Compliance date is the same thing. Resolved date is the date that is closed. So if you want to save your changes in here and then come back in and delete these dates, you can. It's a couple of extra keystrokes, but if they bother you, that's where you can make that change. These, I do not believe, are pulling into the notices right now. So you're okay to do that. So down here on this particular case type, we have some additional violation information that we can check. Some may not pertain to this case type. You'll notice that you have a zoning violation box and an additional corrective actions details box. You can type text in here. And it will pull into the notices. You can type text in here. And save it. And then you can pull that into the notices. So you have 3 areas that you can add information to your notices. Corrective action, there's no lock, you can edit this field. Zoning violation, there's no lock, you can edit this field. Same for additional corrective actions down here. And then you can check boxes in here if you want to pull some of these additional violations over. Okay, so moving on down the workflow, initial inspection. So one thing that's a little bit different is we're focusing more on inspections in the workflow. I'm going to go into one that has not been activated yet. You can tell if something in the workflow has not been activated because it remains gray. So a couple other features about this. If I want to make this shorter, I can start collapsing things down by clicking on these black arrows to the left. So when I do that, it just pulls the steps up underneath the overall activity title. So let's go take a look at an inspection type. Let's see, we've got. So in this case, an initial inspection was already done, and they put the status as correction. So this inspection actually failed, the violation remained, and the officer will need to do a follow-up inspection. So when we go out and we do our follow-up inspection, we're going to click on the action, right-click to create. Brings up our information over here. So we're going to schedule this one. So we've got our status. We're going to schedule it. It's going to automatically pull in the date that we entered it, which is today. We can put comments here if we want to. We don't have to, but we can. So the scheduled start date, let's say we're doing this a week from today, so next Wednesday. Scheduled end date should auto-populate when we save it. I'm going to go ahead and put that in. And then request time, he wants to do it on his lunch break, so we're going to do that. I'm going to save it. A couple of neat things to note. If I go over here in this inspection, over to the Inspectors tab, the officer may or may not auto-populate here. So far in testing it, it has not. So this inspector was added. Let's take a look real quick at who our case officer is. So this particular case is assigned to Ryan Calametti, and then in our workflow, follow-up inspection, and scheduled inspection, we have Aaron Aceves as a primary inspector, but we think that Ryan is going to need to go out with Aaron to conduct an inspection. So we got an error saying they can't look at his calendar. That's okay. This is just scheduled. It's not. It's subject to change. So we're going to save Ryan as an inspector on this inspection. And so the inspection is saved. It now has an inspection number associated with it. This record is an independent record associated with this case, but it can be searched outside the case in the inspection module. So that's going to give field officers or field staff an ability to look for assigned inspections and run reports going forward. So I just clicked on Edit Inspection. Let me go back real quick. So I'm in the inspection. I'm going to click out of it. Go back to, I want to show you how I did that. So I'm in the workflow, went to Follow-up Inspection, clicked on the action, brought this information up over here. I can see it's scheduled, got the date, the times. Up here, under Workflow Details, I have the Edit Inspection button. I'm going to click on that. It's going to take me into some fields. Remember, this is a standalone record. So there are some fields here that I can put information into that I can then either search later or have access to. So first, it defaults to our inspection details. We can see some basic information, our inspectors, the parcel. We're not using checklist. Address pulls in from our global our original case. When we click on additional info on the menu, there are some case-specific fields that can collect additional information or inspection statistics. Using these fields in the inspections is beneficial to the department in that it enables us to be able to search this information and pull reports quickly, provided there's data there, so that we can provide that to the Board of Supervisors, the Executive Office, utilize it for applications for grant funding. There are a wide variety of times that we could need this type of information. So we've got our inspection statistics and our action statistics. So these fields have always been here under the inspection type. We really want to encourage staff to use them. Documents, we're not using this currently in the inspections, so we're going to go ahead and go back to inspection details. We're going to close out of this for now. Let's see. Another feature I wanted to show you in the workflow. You'll notice here on the notice of violation step, as well as the notice of pendency step. Notice of advisory notice step, print advisory notice with inspection, print notice of violation. So some of these steps under, let's say, notice of violation, I'm going to launch print notice of violation by clicking on it. I'm going to right click to create. It is going to launch the document that is appropriate to this workflow. I'm going to give it a minute to do that. Okay, maybe more than a minute. There we go. So a couple things to note. I've got my occupant, Jane Smith, that I put into the code case details. Got the owner from Global Contacts, which was Ramona Expressway Apartments, LLC. And then my property owner from the Details tab. I can choose one by clicking on one of these available options and then clicking this singular arrow, or I can choose this Add All button and send them over to selected values. Select Assigned User. I can select either of the inspectors assigned to the case. I believe we're going to choose Ryan, and then select the compliance date, 15 days from today or 30 days. We're going to go with 15 and say OK. Once we say OK, it starts processing. Okay, there's our notice of violation. In order to abate public nuisance, I'm going to export it. Now this essentially remains the same as what you were accustomed to before. The only difference being is you're launching it from the workflow. So now you've got, we filled in our dates and the details, so it pulls in today's date as the date of mailing. First notice is our Jane Smith, our tenant. Pulls in all of the information that we put into the workflow. So you can see prohibited fencing, remove garage door fencing. Fencing shall not be constructed with materials not typically used for the construction of fences. Fences shall be 7 feet in height or less. This was the additional text I typed in. And then I went down to additional correction and added some further clarification. Got my violation for excess outside storage here with the corrective action that I did not edit, and you can see it has the enter appropriate amount that we would have rather had specify the amount that was allowed on the parcel. Again, it's dependent on the zone and the parcel size. So we would want to exit out of this and go back and clean that up and run it again. So we've got our compliance date of July 16th based on the date of mailing and the 15-day selection we put when we generated this report. This is flat fee, so it has the flat fee wording. The officer that the case is assigned to or that we selected when we ran this notice or report. The code violation fee handout that goes with everything that is mailed out currently, that's flat fee. And then the title of the document that we selected. And the ordinance sections. This first proof of service is specific to the tenant, so it only has her information. That's something that we are working on in a future fix, is being able to do one proof of service with a notice list. At this point in time, we still have the one proof of service per document. But again, we are working on changing that moving forward. So if I want to save this and attach it, I can. So I'm going to go ahead and just save it out to my desktop. It gives it the friendly name from the system. If I wanted to add the case number, I could. I shouldn't have too much out there, so I'm just going to save it like that. Okay. Something else you'll notice in the workflow is on some of the steps there will be an added action of drop fee. So in activities, when we did a follow-up inspection on a flat fee case, the activity would trigger the fee. In this instance, we're doing a follow-up inspection. You're going to go out and tell me whether or not it's been corrected. If it's corrected, there's no fee that applies. If it remains in violation, if it's approved, meaning it was corrected and there's no violation, then no fee would apply. If the violation remains, you're going to choose correction and save it. When you click on drop fee, you're going to right click and choose completed, turns it green, go ahead and save it again. That was our follow-up inspection that they failed. And so when we go back out to our menu code case details, fees tab, we can see that that flat fee populated over here. So that's kind of a check and balance. If you've triggered something in the workflow, you can see if it actually went where it was supposed to by going back to the fees. So notice of pendency, these are general actions. You would say once you've recorded the notice of pendency, the document number goes here, the recorded date here, and then we can, in theory, search these. Same thing with notice of pendency released and notice of pendency fee. If we right click on it and do complete, save it, this would be at the point where we've already re-inspected, we've recorded our notice of pendency, they're not in compliance, we're going to drop the fee. Now, when we look back at our user manual, we'll see that there were some items in here that were available to us, but we don't see them. So if we're looking for something we think should be available to us and we don't see it, we can, let me walk back through that, go down to the bottom of the menu and click on the Add Step plus sign. And if you know what you're looking for, you can type it into the name field. If you don't, you can just hit search. Anything that's available to you is going to come up, and you can scroll through until you find what you're looking for. So extension of time, for example, that's already over here somewhere, but let's say we've given them one extension, we want to give them another. You shouldn't do that too frequently, but you could. And so we would click the box for the item we want, click OK, and then come over here to find where it pulled in. So we've got our violation, extension of time pulled in right underneath it. We're going to right click on it, create. We're going to say whether or not we approved it or denied it. If we approve it, we're going to say how many days we approved it for and save that. Any inspection request is intended to be, any extension request requires a check to be submitted with it. So at the time of processing, we would click on drop fee and completed and save. That sends it over to our fees tab, and fiscal will take over processing it from there. So again, I encourage you to use the steps in the workflow. You'll find the workflow documents at the end of the user guides and the appendices. Navigation is pretty much the same. The difference is we're using inspections and providing a little bit more detail. So that takes us to Time Tracker. Time Tracker should look essentially the same. The difference being we're now doing our reports in Time Tracker. So as we have been up until this point, we would come into Time Tracker, click Add Time Entry. It adds a row to the table. Then we come back up to Time Type. We click, it's a required field. We're going to click the drop down and look for the time category that is most applicable to what we're doing. So if we've just opened this case and we're doing documentation, it's going to be office work. If we've gone out into the field and we've done some type of inspection, it will be field work. So we just did our follow-up inspection. I'm going to choose field work. My username populates automatically. In this comments box, I can just start typing my report, or if I want to see it, I can bring up the notebook, and then I'm going to type a phrase that identifies what I've done, and I'm going to use the terminology that I've become accustomed to from what we had previously in activities. So for this one, it's follow-up inspection. So I usually, like I said, do a phrase that tells what it is, a brief description of the inspection. Again, if you didn't type it or don't document it, it didn't happen. So you're going to provide a little bit more detail than what I've provided in this example here, but keep it concise. And then I usually type my first initial, last name, and title. That way, if we do ever change systems, we can still associate the entries with the user. Billable rate, you're going to choose the appropriate billable rate. As an officer in the field, it would remain what you're accustomed to billing or choosing. And then you're going to go over to the total hours or total minutes and enter a time increment. And again, that's still going to generate some information based on the hourly rates, although this case, it's not going to pull over the hourly rates because I am not doing bill now. So then I'll save my work. So again, when you go into Time Tracker is where you're capturing the time you've spent doing whatever activity it is, and it's also where you're going to now add your report in the comments. Okay. Again, navigation in here is essentially the same, the difference being that you're typing your case narrative. You can also type your narrative outside of Plus in a Word document and then copy and paste if you choose to. Moving on down the case menu to documents, this remains the same. You can create notices from this menu option if you choose to, but remember, the documents that are case specific should be found here in the workflow, and the majority you should have the ability to create and save from the workflow. I just clicked on an advisory notice to pull it up real quick to demonstrate that I can generate it from the workflow. Again, I can choose one or all. I can choose the officer assigned to the case or the officer who did the inspection based on the information in the inspections field. Whoops. And generate my notice. I'm going to export it. I'm going to get file here. And then I'm going to make it large so you can see all the wording we pulled in or edited, our fees schedule, and our proof of service. Again, we didn't go back and correct the title, so it pulled in what we had. Now, going back to the documents menu option, our reports or notices are here. We still have this attachments tab. We're going to still follow the same process as we have previously to add an attachment. So you're going to navigate down the menu to Documents. You're going to select the Attachments tab and then the Add Attachment box. Once you click Add Attachment, you get this Attachment Browse option. I'm going to click Browse. I'm going to go out to my desktop where I saved my notice of violation in order to abate today. I'm going to choose that, click Open. It's going to think about it. It's going to pull it in. It's going to ask me if I want to add more files. I do not, so I'm going to click the red X. Now I've got this automatically generated, system generated name. I'm going to add some clarity here. So NOV, order to abate, issued or mailed and then I'm going to save. One thing to notice about the Documents tab or the Attachments tab under Documents, there is an attachment group field that is specific to other departments that is not for code enforcement. Please do not select an attachment group. Leave those fields alone. So again, we do not use these. We don't need to worry about them. So that's an overview of navigating in the new case types. Again, each workflow is specific to the case type. You'll find the workflow information in the code, the Plus user guides that are available on the shared drive. I will also email those to you. That's really it for this overview. If you have questions, let me know and I'll put together more informational videos or instruction manuals, whatever you need. Thank you for your attention and enjoy the rest of your day.